Welcome to the CarGurus UK review of the 2020 Volvo S90 T8 plug-in hybrid. Oh, that's a mouthful. Now, in this video, we're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to obviously do an appraisal of this rather handsome car, but also we're going to use it to talk about plug-in hybrids in general, because this is a car that really does bring to the fore some of the pros and cons of this technology. So stay tuned. Please do subscribe if you haven't already done so, and let us know in the comments below what you think about the S90 and about plug-in hybrids overall. So to explain what a plug-in hybrid is, actually take a step back and think of a normal hybrid like a Toyota Prius and how it has a petrol engine and an electric motor and a battery that feeds that electric motor. Now in a normal hybrid like that Prius, the battery is actually quite small, so it can draw its charge from a combination of the engine and the regenerative braking, but on the downside it can't go that far on electric only power before the battery runs down again. In a plug-in hybrid, the battery is much bigger, so you can drive further on electric-only power and at higher speeds. The downside is that it can't get all its power from the car itself, all its charge, so instead you have to plug it in, hence plug-in hybrid. The reason plug-in hybrids exist is because they allow manufacturers to make significant CO2 savings in official fuel economy tests and thereby drive down their average CO2 emissions as they scramble to comply with upcoming legislation. From a consumer point of view, cars like this allow you to take advantage of some of the big benefits of electric motoring, such as heavily reduced company car tax rates and exemption from some congestion charging zones, without abandoning the convenience of internal combustion. On the downside, you're effectively paying for two powertrains, so plug-in hybrids can be fairly expensive compared with a petrol or diesel model. This S90 T8 R-Design plug-in hybrid, for example, costs just under £58,000. The same spec car in T5 with the petrol engine is just over £44,000. In the 2020 S90 T8, that extra money gets you an 11.6 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, which takes around 3 to 6 hours to charge and gives a pure electric driving range of up to 34 miles. As with any car, electric or not, the exact economy or range that you get will depend very much on driving style. So if you drive like a saint, you might well see that 34th mile in your T8 on electric-only range. But put your foot down and you definitely won't. Another thing with plug-in hybrids that it's worth being aware of is that because they have such big batteries, sometimes you'll find that boot space is compromised compared with the equivalent petrol or diesel model. All credit to Volvo then for that not being the case with the S90. It has the same enormous 500-litre boot as other S90 petrol or diesel models. The only difference is you have to carry the charging cables with this. And that really is indicative of how electrification is core to Volvo's product strategy these days. All of its cars are designed from the ground up to house all of the stuff you need to make them electrified, including a battery that runs down the spine of the car. It's not just the boot that's big either, the rear seat accommodation is very generous too. This is a fantastic car to be transported in with acres of legroom and headroom. Now, I know that all modern Volvos look quite similar inside these days, but don't let that detract from just what a well-resolved interior this is. The materials feel lovely, there's decent storage, the level of tech is very good, and things like this metal edge to the start switch on the drive modes and the metal or wooden panels that you can have up here really do help to make it feel special. Volvo's Sensus touchscreen is also meant to provide a tablet-like experience and houses a whole host of the car's functions, from the heating and audio to the instruction manual and controls for the active safety features. It's also through this touchscreen that you can control the various driving modes of the S90. So for example, if I use this driving mode button here, I can either scroll to select modes or I can tap on the screen. So I can have hybrid, that's the default mode, and that juggles petrol and electric power to be as efficient as possible. There's also pure, this is electric only. There's a constant all-wheel drive mode, and there's a sort of a high power Polestar engineered mode. I'll talk about those a bit more when we're driving. As well as that, you can use the touchscreen if you scroll and then swipe down here, you've got a hold and a charge mode. Hold allows you to hold the current state of battery charge. So for example, if you are on a long journey that has a bit of urban driving at the end, you want to do that in zero emissions mode, you can press hold. If you press charge, what that does is it draws power from the petrol engine to charge the battery, although that is fairly disastrous in terms of fuel economy. So let's begin with what is arguably the best thing about a plug-in hybrid, and that is the ability to drive on electric power for a decent distance and up to motorway speeds. Now, if you haven't driven an electric car before, take it from me, they are generally really nice to drive. Not only are they virtually silent, but also they're very responsive. Unlike a petrol or a diesel engine where you get this gradual building of torque as you accelerate, in an electric car you get everything at once, so they feel really brisk. Now, how outright fast they are in electric mode will depend on how much power the motor produces. In the S90 T8, it's around 85 horsepower, but you get a lot more torque. Now, it's not loads, but it's kind of enough really just for pootling around. Combined with a well-cushioned ride, a smooth shifting 8-speed automatic gearbox and excellent insulation from wind and road noise, this ability to run on electric power makes the S90 T8 an extremely soothing car to drive. That applies when the car is in its default hybrid mode too. This is the one where it juggles the petrol and electric power depending on how you're driving, and it really is serene unless you're absolutely going for it. It feels so calm and quiet in here. In fact, sitting in this lovely interior with these fantastic seats and these sumptuous materials, it really does feel like I'm travelling business class. But what about some of the other possibilities that a plug-in hybrid allows as well? Well, that depends to some degree how it's been configured. Some cars, for example, send petrol and electric power to only the front axle, others send it only to the rear axle. The way Volvo sets its plug-in hybrids up is to have the internal combustion engine driving the front wheels and the electric motor driving the rear axle. Now what that means is, provided you've got enough charge in the battery, you can combine both of those power sources to give you full-time four-wheel drive. So say it's icy, for example, and you want the low-speed control that you get with four-wheel drive, you just select that mode on the driver select here, and you are quite literally away. Then there's the performance mode, labelled here as engineered by Polestar. The thinking behind having a sports or performance mode in a plug-in hybrid is that if you've got these two power sources, why not combine them to give the best possible performance? Now, in the S90 T8's case, that results in a lot of power because, God, it's quick, the 2-litre petrol engine already has a supercharger and a turbocharger, so it makes 303 horsepower. So when you add the electric motor to that, what you end up with is a 390 horsepower Volvo saloon car. No surprise then that the S90 T8 can accelerate from 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 5.1 seconds. It's actually a bit of a hot rod, this car, although it doesn't sound like one. The soundtrack's actually a bit of a strange mixture of some supercharger whine, a muted 4-cylinder growl, and then the occasional high-pitched noise from the electric motor. Don't think that turns it into a Swedish BMW M5 though, because it's just too heavy and a bit too soft and squishy, and the steering is too numb for it to feel really involving. No, this is an out-and-out cruiser, just one that can happen to go very fast, should you need it to. Do that though and you'll kill the fuel consumption. Push hard and the T8's economy could drop into the 20 to 30 mile per gallon range. Bearing in mind that the official WLTP verified fuel economy figure for this S90 T8 is 156.9 miles per gallon, the idea that it could do as little as 20 miles per gallon might seem implausible, but that kind of does really sum up what these plug-in hybrids can be like. It really does depend both driving style and how often you plug it in. So, for example, I've been driving a lot in hybrid mode, and in that I get 40 to 45 miles per gallon. But if all of my journeys have been less than 20 miles and I've been able to charge the battery fully between each one, then that fuel economy figure is going to improve dramatically. So in conclusion, as a product and as a piece of technology, there is plenty about the S90 T8 plug-in hybrid, and indeed plug-in hybrids in general, to like. But as a potential purchase, they really do make the most sense for company car drivers who can reap the significant tax benefits that come from having an electrified car. Where it gets more confusing is when you start thinking about the intended environmental benefits and the reduced CO2 emissions that plug-in hybrids are supposed to have, and whether they really benefit general car buyers who are just seeking the most value from their car. Because the bottom line is, unless you plug these in enough to do the majority of your driving on electric power, then you might well be better off with a petrol, diesel or standard hybrid instead. What do you think of the S90 T8? Let us know in the comments below. Plus, please do subscribe and turn on notifications by ringing the bell icon. And remember, when it comes to finding your next car, you can easily find great deals from top-rated dealers at cargurus.co.uk.